If you are new to my channel, I encourage you to check out my extensive coverage on the disappearance of Stephen Kosher. I'm currently offering a $3,000 reward for information that leads to the discovery of what happened to Stephen Kosher. I also encourage you to check out my series covering Terry Beaver's murder. In that series, I reveal details about Terry's killer that you won't find anywhere else. Lastly, I want to encourage you to check out my detailed analysis video covering Liz Barraz's murder. In that video, I reveal game-changing information and evidence that is exclusive to this channel.
In this video, I'm going to reveal what has been going on behind the scenes on one of several cases I have assisted law enforcement with over the last 2 years.
I have held off releasing information on Dale Kerstetter's case for over a year to allow law enforcement sufficient time to investigate the information that I gave them.
Dale disappeared over 35 years ago, so I don't believe that me releasing this information will have a negative impact on law enforcement's investigation.
Alright, so let me get you all caught up on what I've been working on behind the scenes on Dale Kerstetter's case.
This all started in September 2021. I was looking for a new case to research for my channel.
So I went to Google and did a search for unsolved cases with surveillance footage. This list's first page came up first, so I clicked on the link and visited the page. As I scrolled down through the list, I saw Dale Kerstetter's face, and I started reading about his case, and I was intrigued. So I Googled Dale Kerstetter's name and discovered that his case was featured on Unsolved Mysteries. For those of you that want to check out the episode, it's Unsolved Mysteries, Season 2, Episode 5. This episode premiered on Wednesday, October 25, 1989. I will include a link to the episode in the description below.
Here is a synopsis for Dale Kerstetter's case.
On Saturday, September 12, 1987, at around 10:30 p.m., 50-year-old Dale Kerstetter arrived at the Corning Glass Factory, located in Bradford, Pennsylvania.
At the time of Dale's disappearance, the Corning factory was in the process of downsizing, and many workers had been laid off.
Because Dale had been an exemplary employee at Corning for over 29 years, Corning management decided to keep Dale on, but they reduced his pay. In order to offset this loss in income, Dale began working at night as a security guard at the factory, from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. When Dale arrived that Saturday night, he relieved the evening security guard Art Peterson. Art later stated that Dale was behaving as he normally would, and nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary. When the morning security guard John Lindquist arrived at around 7 a.m. on Sunday, September 13, he discovered that the factory was completely empty, and Dale was nowhere to be found. The factory keys, a newspaper, and Dale's uneaten lunch were found in the break room. When law enforcement looked inside of Dale's truck parked in the parking lot, they discovered Dale's keys still in the ignition, along with a carton of fresh cigarettes and a holster for Dale's .22 pistol that he normally carried when he was on patrol. The .22 pistol was missing. Days after Dale's disappearance, it was discovered that someone had used a hacksaw to remove platinum rods underneath the kiln that was used to melt glass. The estimated value of the platinum rods that were stolen was around $250,000 in 1987.
No reward was offered for information on Dale's disappearance, but a reward was offered for information on the platinum.
The local newspaper ran an article titled, "Platinum Found Missing," with no mention of Dale's disappearance. To make matters worse, in the Unsolved Mysteries episode, Corning management were interviewed, and they threw Dale under the bus, questioning his character, work ethic, and even going as far as claiming that they believed he may have been involved in the platinum heist. Not only did Corning management slander Dale on national television, but Corning also refused to pay out Dale's pension to his children. In the Unsolved Mysteries episode, there is a reenactment of the Corning surveillance footage from the night of Dale's disappearance. The reenactment footage shows Dale walking on the factory floor and a masked man following close behind. As Dale gets closer to the camera, he quickly glances up, staring straight into the camera. Many have speculated that the masked man had Dale at gunpoint.
So why didn't Unsolved Mysteries use the real surveillance footage in the episode? For whatever reason. For over 30 years, law enforcement never released the original surveillance footage to the public. So it sat decaying in the evidence room. Eventually, the surveillance footage was loaded into a computer, but it had already degraded a great deal.
In 2019, Muckrock News filed a Freedom of Information Act with the Bradford Township Police Department, requesting the surveillance footage be released. In June 2019, the request was granted. Muckrock News uploaded the footage onto their site. I am including a link to that page below. I downloaded the file from their site, and when I opened the file and watched the video for the first time, I was completely shocked. The footage had decayed to the point where it was unwatchable. I'm going to play a brief clip of the footage now. I want to warn viewers that if you have epilepsy or are photosensitive, this brief video clip contains fast flashing images. The video is an hour and 23 minutes in length, and there are over 200,000 frames in the surveillance footage. Granted, many of the frames are unusable, but I still must go through each frame in order to make sure I don't miss anything. To put this into perspective, I've spent over 2,000 hours going through the surveillance footage on Terry Beaver's case, and there are less than 30,000 frames in total. Another frustrating feature with the Corning surveillance footage is that it constantly flips between three different camera angles. Camera 1, which is located inside the glass melting kiln, Camera 2, located on the factory floor, and Camera 3, located in a hallway just outside the factory floor. I began going through the footage frame by frame, extracting the best frames, slightly enhancing them with Photoshop, and then placing them in files that I created, labeled 1, 2, and 3, for each camera angle. After I extracted several of the frames that show Dale and the masked intruder on the factory floor, I created a very short clip out of the best frames. I'm going to play that for you in just a moment. When the clip begins playing, Dale is positioned here, in the lower right of the screen, looking down at the ground. He is wearing what appears to be a jacket with a light-colored shirt. The masked intruder is positioned just behind Dale's right shoulder here, and he is wearing what appears to be a ski mask with a winter coat. On the left is what the original frames look like. On the right is what the frames look like after I enhanced them slightly in Photoshop. Here is the enhanced footage.
While working on the surveillance footage, I continued to research Dale's case, and that's when I came across the Lost and Found blogs.
This is a website created by Heather Grotman, aka Crystal Dawn. She has 2 blogs on her site covering Dale's case, Gone Platinum and Gone Platinum 2, The Mystery Deepens. In these blogs, Heather doesn't just report on Dale's case, but she takes it to the next level, doing a deep dive that includes interviewing friends and family members of Dale, researching similar factory break-ins, and following up on possible leads. I'm including a link to her website in the description below.
In my downtime between working on the surveillance footage and researching Dale's case, I went back and rewatched the Unsolved Mysteries episode several times.
In the episode, Al Kerstetter, Dale's son, is asked where he thinks his father Dale is at, and Al states, "If he's alive, which I think he is, he's either in Canada or Australia." Al mentioning Canada stood out to me. My brother Dallas went missing in late 2004, early 2005. He was last seen riding a bike in Washington State near the Canadian border. So for well over a decade, I routinely checked the Canada's Missing website, searching through their unidentified remains, looking for a match, to no avail. Based off Al Kerstetter's statement, and knowing that the Canadian border is not that far from Bradford, Pennsylvania, I decided to look at Canada's Missing website again to see if any of the unidentified remains matched up with Dale. From Canada's Missing main page, I selected Unidentified Remains from the drop-down menu. This brought up 366 unidentified persons. Dale was last seen on September 12, 1987. So I clicked through the pages until I got to page 6, which has Unidentified Remains post-September 1987. I scrolled down, and there, at the bottom left of the screen, was a sketch of a face that immediately captured my attention. I clicked on the link and pulled up the file for a white male, age 40 to 74, with thinning to bald hair, stained teeth from smoking, and these remains had been in the water for months, possibly years. Everything checked off.
The smoking stains on the teeth really piqued my interest. I knew Dale was a regular smoker, because in the Unsolved Mysteries episode, detectives discovered that Dale had left behind a fresh carton of cigarettes on the seat of the truck. Additionally, in photos of Dale, he is seen smoking.
The remains of this unidentified man were discovered south of Loch 19 in the Otonabee River. Further research revealed that this specific area is a popular destination for American and Canadian fishermen and boaters. I Google mapped the location where the remains were found, and a chill ran up my spine. The location where the remains were found was about 4 hours north of the Corning glass factory.
I immediately contacted law enforcement in Ontario, Canada, and gave them information on Dale's case, along with this side-by-side photo and contact information for the Pennsylvania State Police.
I then contacted Dale's daughter Penny on Facebook, as well as reached out to Heather Grobman.
I gave them both a link to the unidentified remains on the Canada's Missing website. I told Heather and Penny that I would keep them updated if law enforcement contacted me back, and they both stated that they would do the same thing on their end.
I continued to research these unidentified remains and discovered that this unidentified person had become known as the Peterborough John Doe, aka the Otonabee Riverman. I then compared the images and details of Dale Kerstetter to the images and details I discovered about the Otonabee Riverman. The time frame was right. The stains on the teeth, the slightly crooked nose and jaw, the eyebrows and hair, it all lined up. And the way the Otonabee Riverman was killed. This wasn't an accident. Only a skull was found, and it had been jammed under a log at the bottom of the river. A specialist who examined the skull stated that the Otonabee Riverman's head had been removed deliberately using a sharp object. When I read this, my mind flashed back to the shot in the Unsolved Mysteries episode where the masked intruder is cutting away at the platinum pipe using an extremely sharp hacksaw. In a news article written by Todd Vandonk, retired detective Jeff Morgan stated that there were no outstanding missing men in the city of Peterborough and that the skull may have been brought to the area from elsewhere. In the same news article, it is stated that there is a DNA profile of the unknown man on file in Canada and that over 400 people have been tested and eliminated. Right before his retirement in 2015, Detective Morgan stated, "All leads hit a dead end. We can't precisely narrow down who he was."
As I continued to research Dale's case, I discovered that at one point the FBI got involved, and the Pennsylvania State Police turned over the original Corning surveillance footage to the FBI. Reportedly, the FBI enhanced the footage and still have it in their archives. I reached out to the FBI in October 2021, asking them for a copy of the footage.
And I received a quick reply, stating that unless I provide an authorization and consent form from the Corning Glass Company, proof of death, or justification that the public interest in disclosure outweighs personal privacy, they would not release the surveillance footage to me. Dale was pronounced dead in 2014, so I asked Penny if she would be able to get a copy of Dale's death certificate so that we could acquire the footage from the FBI. I also gave Heather and Penny all the paperwork and information on how Penny could acquire the footage if she wanted to do it herself, and I never heard back from them.
Around the same time, I spoke with a man named Mike West. Mike told me that he, along with Heather, were in the process of producing a documentary on Dale's case.
So perhaps they are planning on acquiring the surveillance footage for that documentary. In November 2021, I received a phone call from Detective Sergeant Josh McGrath with the Peterborough Police. Josh is probably the most professional and considerate law enforcement officer I have spoken to. He advised me that his agency had contacted Pennsylvania State Police and gave them everything they needed in order to perform a DNA analysis/comparison.
I sent Josh a follow-up email offering to help by crowdfunding the money needed for the DNA testing, but I never received a response.
Several months went by, with no word from law enforcement, so I contacted Pennsylvania State Police a couple times and left a few messages, but no one ever called me back.
I then contacted law enforcement in Ontario, Canada, and they advised me that Trooper Randy D. Powell with the Pennsylvania State Police was their contact person for Dale's case in the U.S. I called Randy twice and left a voicemail with my contact information, but I never received a call back.
So this is where this behind-the-scenes story ends. If these remains do belong to Dale Kerstetter, it would not only solve the unsolved mystery of Dale's disappearance, but also give a name to the Peterborough John Doe, aka Otonabee Riverman, who has remained nameless for over 30 years.
It would also force the FBI to release the enhanced Corning surveillance footage to the public, which should have been done decades ago.
On top of this, it would prove that Dale wasn't involved in the platinum heist once and for all, clearing his name and casting shame on the Corning Glass Company for the horrible way they treated Dale and his family. But most importantly, it would bring Dale's remains home, giving his family and friends answers they deserve and allow them to lay his remains to rest.
If these are not the remains of Dale Kerstetter, I will be majorly disappointed. But at least I can say I did my very best, and I will continue to do my very best working on Dale's case, behind the scenes.
Maybe you are watching this video right now, and you recall overhearing a conversation years ago about Dale's disappearance, or this platinum heist. Maybe you know someone who may have been involved in a different platinum heist. Maybe you know someone who lived in the northeast of the US or the southeast of Canada who came into a large sum of unexplained money around the time of Dale's disappearance. Maybe you worked at a smelting foundry and recall someone bringing in platinum rods to melt down around the time of Dale's disappearance. Or who knows, maybe you were involved in Dale's disappearance or this platinum heist, and you just want to get some things off your chest before you die. Please, call the Pennsylvania State Police tip line at 1-800-4PA-TIPS. If you don't want to deal with law enforcement, you can contact me at aaronstoner@yahoo.com, and you can remain completely anonymous.